if a woman believes herself to be equal while wearing the veil, should we doubt that?
This is Faith Complex, a dialogue about the entanglement of religion, politics and art.
Hello, I'm Sarah Fainberg of Georgetown University, sitting in for Jacques Berliner-Blo, and you're watching Faith Complex. Our guest today is Dr. Melanie Adrian. She's published widely in the area of religious freedom in Europe and Muslims in France. Dr. Adrian is from Harvard University. Welcome to Faith Complex.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's been so much debate about the headscarf in the past decade. Could you give us a little bit of background to this debate?
Yes, it's certainly true. There's been a lot of debate around the headscarf, and it started really in the 1998-1989 school year. And that is when in a local suburb of Paris, two young Muslim girls came to school wearing the headscarf. And that in itself actually wasn't so much the problem as it was the fire or the spark that lit the fire.
In the United States, as I understand it, secularism is all about the separation of church and state, and also the private and the public involved. So what is so specific in the French case?
So the nuances of the everyday lived realities are something that should be separate in France. So religious beliefs should be separated and kept in the private rather than in the public sphere. The 2004 law that banned religious symbols banned not just the Muslim veil, it banned all religious symbols. So the Muslim veil, the Jewish skull cap, large crosses, and so on. And it sought to make that differentiation between the private and the public. And in a place, the school system, which seeks to create and foster citizenship and the values of the Republic, liberty, fraternity, and equality.
You know, the ban on the headscarf was addressing every religion, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity in France. And yet it seems to be mainly targeted at Islam. So is it a mere coincidence, or is it a veil, if you will, for Islamophobia?
The law certainly itself did not target only Muslims, as we know, but the discussions around the Stasi Commission, the commission that recommended the law, certainly the public discussions were all around and centered around the Muslim veil, and Muslims in particular. And the Muslim minority is a significant minority in France.
I think, as far as I remember, the justification behind the law was to protect young Muslim girls from being harassed or under family pressure of wearing the hijab, the headscarf. How would you sociologically ground that argument? Is it valid that many Muslim girls were under family pressure?
Certainly, I think what we have to do is broadly contextualize that statement. That we have in France a type of balkanization that is going on, meaning that in the ghetto areas, in the cités, in the banlieues around major cities in France, we have areas where many immigrants or children of immigrants are living prone to high levels of unemployment, discrimination, drug culture, daily violence, family violence, that typifies those kinds of areas. And so you have the veil issue is coming out of those kinds of conditions. And so that pressure, the pressure that these young women feel, certainly there are young women who feel these pressures, there's no doubt. But is it enough that it causes or is a threat to the Republic is a different question altogether.
Many scholars would argue that in this very headscarf affair we've seen a confrontation between a post-Christian, secularized France and a resurgent Islam. So what do you think about this?
Right. So it's the classic clash of civilizations, right? Kind of argument. And it permeates different forms of thinking. And generally speaking, I don't buy into that at all. And that is
why?
to say, I think you can be a woman who wears a headscarf and be modern, all depending on how you define modernity, of course, right? Can you be a woman who believes in equality and the headscarf? Absolutely. So I think the fundamental question is, if a woman believes herself to be equal while wearing the veil, should we doubt that?
Right. Let's step back a little bit and address the larger European context.
Yeah.
Where does France stand in terms of the European Court of Human Rights compared to Germany and the UK, for example?
Yeah. Well, in fact, the European Court of Human Rights was really important in the creation of the 2004 law. The European Court of Human Rights, the President came to advise the Stasi Commission on the creation, potential creation of a law. And so and it was mainly because of that that the Commission was persuaded, as well as some of the testimonies. There's no doubt that there was a need in some of these areas around major cities to control some of the daily violence that was going on. And the headscarf certainly was part of that, in the sense that it reflected a type of identity and a type of protest, for example, a type of personal choice that runs contrary to Republican ideals. But the question is, did it need to be a law? That was my question, and other scholars who worry about religious freedom and the decline of religious freedom in Europe.
As I understand you, you strongly oppose the ban on the headscarf. However, with the burqa, we are in a different situation with the full cover veil. There is a real issue of respecting a woman's dignity who can show her face and be considered an equal citizen in the public sphere.
Well, here's where I think we need to contrast the situation around the veil and the burqa. The veil came out of a time of reflection where there was this intense conflict. What do we do? How do we help these local principals and teachers and families understand what it means to live in France? And where can laïcité draw the boundaries? And so the Stasi Commission looked not just at schools, they looked at hospitals, they looked at jails, they looked at the public sphere more generally. And they said, you know, we really have to accommodate religious minorities in the following ways. And they had many recommendations. Only one of those recommendations was acted on. Only one. And with swiftness. And within 3 months of the Stasi Commission report being published, the law banning religious symbols in public schools was passed to overwhelming support in the National Assembly. The burqa, on the other hand, has really come into play through Sarkozy, President Sarkozy, by really asking the question, should this be part of our national framework in any way whatsoever? I value the right to religious freedom, and I value a woman's choice to express her religiosity in ways that don't harm others or themselves.
Would you think that there is no Islamist threat at all in France? Do you think that this threat is not relevant at all?
I think it is relevant. And I think we shouldn't, scholars like myself, actually often undermine that threat by reducing it to something peripheral to what's going on. And surely we shouldn't dismiss them. I think there is a threat. And I think we need to think very carefully about the associations that we make between that threat and the wider Muslim communities.
Thank you. Merci, Dr. Adrian.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.